Okay, so now let's take a look at the toolpaths that we'll put on here for performing these V-carve functions. So here I'm going to switch to my manufacturing environment, and you can see because I was messing around with the original design model, all these toolpaths are out of date, and so what I'm going to quickly do here is just generate them and have them recalculate the proper toolpath information. So a couple things that I do here, especially with V-carving, because I see a lot of posts about, hey, my V-carve didn't go as deep as I wanted, or it went too deep, or things like that. What I typically do is I'll have a bunch of scrap around, obviously, and what I might do is just program one of these letters, for example, and then I'll just try to cut that on scrap just to test the depths that I have defined in here, to make sure that I don't invest in my full sheet and only to find out if something is wrong. So utilize your scrap in meaningful ways, so that you can do some test runs before you actually commit to doing things. So within Fusion, we can see here that we have all these different operations. So we can see I have an operation for cutting out the larger letters, the smaller letters, the face, some of the perimeters here, the actual field hockey logo, and then a circumference there, and then of course the final contour to cut that out. So let's just examine these toolpaths and see what we have. I've been cutting these out of PVC, so what I've done is I've purchased white PVC, I've painted the surface black, and then perform my carving operation after that. So let's look at this very first one. And so you can see here, so the tool that I've selected for this, I have a 1/2 inch 90-degree chamfer mill that I've defined inside of Fusion, and I use this tool for all the operations that you see here except for the contour at the very end. Here are my spindle feeds, so my RPMs are pretty low. Cutting feed rate, I set it to be pretty slow. It can probably be a lot faster than that. What I saw was when I did set it to be faster, I was getting some black rubbing occurring in here. So what I would do is I'd run a second pass to kind of clean that up a little bit. But obviously you can play with your feed rates. This entire model to cut from start to finish is only about 30 minutes, if that, to do this. Now here's the important part here. So here's where I've selected the chains of what I want to cut. And so here I've selected the top surface of these features. And then Fusion automatically calculates the height that we have here. So I went through each one of these. I saw what it was going to do, so you can see that's kind of an odd number that's put in there, so you can see that that's not something that I've put in to determine what that height is, and so Fusion automatically calculated that. So let's just take a look and see what that might look like in a finished simulation. And we'll generate that because we messed with the tool. And then here I'm just going to simulate just that one toolpath. So one of the things that I like to do is turn the model off, especially with V-carve. And then I change this operation here to material, and I'll make it this plastic vinyl. And then I'll go ahead and simulate that. And we'll see how it's going to look. So that actually looks pretty good to me. I ran a test run of that, and I didn't end up losing all this detail in here in terms of what Fusion's showing me versus what it actually outputs is pretty darn close. Of course, setting your proper Z height to the top of this board is what I use in this case. In the case of V-carve, I never set my height to the bottom because there's varying thicknesses here in the stock, and I think setting it to the top is where I've had my success. Let's take a look at another toolpath as we go through here. And again, as I mentioned, we used a lot of, or we used the same tool, as we went through here. This circumference, I could have easily used a small end mill to go in there, but I was able to achieve what I wanted to achieve, with the V-Carve 90-degree tool. And so now if we simulate this one, we can see, and this kind of stuff was acceptable to me, and it looked pretty good on the final output as well. And so there, of course, is the tool path that Fusion created. So let's look at this piece of text that we have in here. Not quite sure which one it is here. I think it's there we go. So in this case, I think this one took a little bit of playing around with to get the depth correct, because the letters were so close. I'll show you what font I used on that, just because I did play around with different fonts and had different levels of success with that. Here in this case, I just chose the actual text itself, and then it put the tool paths around that automatically. And then as far as my heights go, you can see here that it did in fact calculate that automatically based off of the tool that I chose to use for this. And so if we simulate that one also, those are pretty much the results, final result that I got when I finished this model. Okay, so those were the particulars of this. So I guess my biggest recommendation is to test some of these letters with scrap that you have. Make sure that you're going to get the desired results that you're looking for before you actually commit to your final design and your final cut.